Welcome to the Western Art Print Room in the Ashmolean Museum. This room is full of extraordinary treasures, drawings and prints by Michelangelo, Raphael, Leonardo da Vinci, Rembrandt. I'd like to introduce you to one of the greatest artists of the 20th century, who's also one of the least known. The artist is Gwen John, whose brother was Augustus and who has really suffered under his reputation. He was extremely flamboyant, extremely social, and extremely loud, whereas she was immensely sensitive and really quite the opposite in terms of character. In fact, in later life, he recognized that she was a much better artist than he was. She was born in Wales and studied at the Slade School in the 1890s. The turning point in her life came in 1903 when she went with a friend on a tour of France. She settled in France in the following year and quickly became involved with Auguste Rodin. And indeed, he was one of the obsessions of her life. She had a rather tempestuous relationship with him, and eventually he had to ask her to desist. By the time she moved to Meudon, which is where he had his studio, in 1911, the relationship had become cooler. Her intensity was extraordinary. She worked very slowly. In fact, it's said that she painted only 2 or 3 paintings a year. She worked intently and alone. So most of her pictures show interiors, occasionally landscapes, townscapes, but mostly interiors with single figures or small groups. I'd like to show you one of those. This was made after the First World War, while she was on her holidays in Brittany, in a remote village which had nothing but a few huts for the fishermen. It wasn't one of those fashionable resorts of the kind that you get in Brittany, even now. She painted extraordinarily methodically, and she made the friendship of a group of little children, both boys and especially girls, and she drew them assiduously. They were still alive in the 1980s when one of the biographies of Gwen John was published, and they remembered very well. She was friendly, but she didn't talk very much. And she made them sit for 45 minutes at a time, which they found, being 8 or 10 or 11 years old, really quite challenging. So although this drawing looks as though it's been made very rapidly indeed, it is the work of 45 minutes. You can see how very rapidly drawn some of the areas of the bodice are with the chalk, but nonetheless, the deliberate way in which the wash has been applied is very, very conscious. The sitter was a little girl called Marie Aminé, and she was aged 10, already working in a shop because her family was so poor, and remembered in later life that she used to fall asleep when she was sitting to Gwen John. Here she looks wide awake. We don't really know what she's thinking. She's looking rather quizzical, partly flattered by the attention given to her, and no doubt Gwen would give them a few shillings or a few francs for their pains. But she's painted outdoors. I think there's no formality about this drawing. It's a way of looking, a very concentrated way of looking at the sitter, but it is not the sitter presenting themselves in any sense. Now, this drawing was given by the artist to her great friend Ursula Tirriett. And in fact, Ursula Tirriett gave it to the Ashmolean along with a number of other drawings in the 1960s. The correspondence between Gwen John and Ursula Tirriett reveals the extraordinarily stormy relationship that Gwen John had with Auguste Rodin. There's almost daily letters backwards and forwards describing how tempestuous the relationship was. From my point of view, there are a number of artists, and Gwen John is one of them, who paint silence beautifully. We think of Chardin in the 18th century, the still life painter. It's not an accident that Gwen John admired Chardin, and indeed her still lifes are in a different way just as communicative. And I think that the solitary nature of the sitting for this little girl, the solitary nature of the creating of the work of art for the artist herself, and the vision come across very clearly.